You are listening to the Nightly News Podcast, the voice of the Knights.
Well, welcome everybody to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I am so honored. This is one of the podcasts that I have tremendously looked forward to over the past several months. We're doing something really special on Friday, May 29th. It's CPC Film Series. Of course, we just celebrated our 30th edition, which we can certainly talk about with our guests here. But we have a special alumni triple feature of films created by two of our esteemed alumni, Dylan Bowman and Nik Hogan. So, first of all, I want to welcome Nightly News Hall of Famer Dylan Bowman to the program. Dylan, welcome back.
Thanks so much. It's always a pleasure.
And we're going to get to talk a little bit more about the two films that you will be screening. That will be Vintage and Plaster Heart. So we'll get to talk about some of that here in just a minute. Of course, also welcoming former CPC Film Series correspondent, Nik Hogan. Nik, welcome back to the show.
Always happy to be here as well.
Well, and Nik will be screening something that is a labor of love, something that he has been working on for many years now, and something that I remember sometimes when Nik was in class, maybe not paying full attention. He was back there doing some animation, and I thought he was just, kind of blowing me off or not paying any attention to what I was doing. But here, it was the early stages of his film that he's creating right now. So good thing that I never said anything, because I might have stifled your innovation.
I swear I was still paying attention.
Of course. No, I totally believe you.
I'm a multitasker.
And of course, current CPC Film Series correspondent Alex Foley. Alex, welcome back to the show.
Hi, happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, we are certainly happy to have you. And so Alex is also here because we are going to really be talking about this CPC Film Series event. Again, that's Friday, May 29th in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. That will doors will open at 6 and the show will start at 6:30. So we might as well start at the beginning. So one of the things that the CPC Film Series has meant to this campus over the years, and both of you have gotten to present. Dylan, you've actually gotten to present a couple of times thus far. Once screening some of your own films, we did that in the past, but you also presented in 1917. So tell us a little bit more about your experience with the film series and how you got involved with that and what it was like to present those couple of times.
Film series, definitely some of my fondest memories here at Central Penn. 1917 was definitely... still is one of my favorite films.
It was amazing. Now, I'd never seen it, and I've shared this with you. I'm not like a big war film buff. So it's rare I will go watch one, but 1917 was just fantastic, and I've since followed the director and some of his other work as well. So just tell us a little bit more about the film series and how you first got involved.
As far as I can remember, because this is going back, at least in my memory, for a little bit, I believe I kind of got approached by... was it Jen or somebody was asking about having me as an assistant for her film or something like that, and I was like partnering up with her on that. And that's where it kind of started off. And then I believe it was either you or Professor Limpy said after that like, hey, you should do this yourself because you're a big film guy. And I think that was the first time was for 1917. I ended up choosing that as my selection.
And then after that, you actually presented one of the films that we are actually going to screen, Vintage. So we've, as part of the CPC Film Series, we've seen Vintage before. So, but Dylan, what was the rationale to pitch to show Vintage again? I know that I know the answer to this question, but just for the guests out there, the listeners out there, why did you want to re-show Vintage as part of the film series?
So I would say that's a two-part answer. The first is that it came back by popular demand. Mainly the Nightly News and yourself wanted to have it back. But the second piece, and why it is a fresh perspective in watching, is that it was just recently rescored by my friend Rita, who is a composer, and she is originally from Harrisburg. Right now she's up in New York, but she recomposed the entire film with original soundtrack.
What is really interesting is I know what the film is. It's black and white. It's got this sort of old school charm to it. I think a new score would totally change the impression that you get. Not to say that the way it was done, the music in the film, the first time I saw it was very good. But if you're having a professional coming in and rescore, that can change the whole mood of the piece.
Absolutely. And the crazy thing and the cool thing about it was that it started to blossomed this relationship of partnership with her. She's now doing almost all of our film music.
That's amazing. Well, so we're looking forward to seeing Vintage. What can you go through that process a little bit about the rescore and as a the director, what interaction did you have with the score? Did you talk with her about like what the mood was that you were looking for? Tell me about how that goes.
So it was actually a really fun story of like an origin story, if you will, about us meeting. So I wanted to submit Vintage into film festivals. Still do. Haven't done Vintage yet, just because of, like I mentioned before we started the podcast, the timing is a little bit off in terms of how film festivals view it and stuff for the short film. But we met. I wanted to enter into film festivals, but I knew that the music, though it was old, would still be copyrighted, and most places would be like, "Oh, we can't take your film, sorry." And instead of me paying for all these film festivals and just hearing no as an answer, I was like, I wonder if I could like rescore this thing and like get it ready for these film festivals in the right way. And I was like, but how on earth am I'm not a music guy. Like, I can't do that. That's like a whole nother level of skill, is like making your own music. I was like, I wonder if there's anybody out there that can like do this in this area. I'm like, there's no way. Like, somebody that could do that probably requires excessive payment, and like I'm probably like not in their wheelhouse, right? So I looked at LinkedIn. I was like, let's just see what's going on here. Type in, I think it was like music composers or something near me, and first one that pops up is Rita. And I'm like, oh, wow, she's from Harrisburg. That's crazy. And she looks like my age or whatever. And I'm like, there's no way. I click on her. I'm like looking at her stuff. I'm like, okay, this is cool. She's in school still doing her thing, like kind of like I am in the film arena. I reach out to her. I message her. I'm like, there's no way she's going to say anything. Within 10 minutes, she responded and said, I'd love to do your film.
Wow. And she
So
didn't even
that's
see it?
No, she hadn't even seen it at that point.
Well, hey, like you can't beat that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to belabor the point on Vintage because, again, film series connoisseurs have seen it, but it's definitely going to be a different vibe. So just as we sort of close the book on Vintage, Dylan, can you tell me from your perspective how much different is the film now with this score? Is it unrecognizable or?
No, I would say it still has the same vibe. Like you had tried to mention a minute ago, you were asking me about like, does it have that same vibe? Did you have to like talk to her about like what it sounds like and everything? I did, and it was very extensive. I felt kind of bad because she would send me stuff and I'd be like, it doesn't quite like fit what we're looking for, and I apologized many times and said like, unfortunately, this film, because I made it with the other tracks in mind and like kind of manipulated the film around those tracks, it kind of has to be exactly the same for this particular film. It's not like more free reign like we did for Plaster Heart. But she did so well and was really patient with me about that, and we ended up making something that sounds different. It has like its own fresh taste, and some people I've shown it to actually like the music in it now better than before, which I find surprising considering those other tracks were made by like, music legends
right,
like back in the day. But it has the same vibe. It's like still that old noir-esque kind of thing, so I think everyone's gonna like it.
We're gonna love it. Well, we'll come back to Plaster Heart here in just a minute, but I want to go over to Nick and talk a little bit more about Nick and Trevor, the first day. This is a little bit different. Dylan has had the opportunity to sort of screen some of his films before. Nick, you've never shown any of your work to really anyone outside of close friends and family.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about that process. I know you're actually still working on the film, whereas the two films that Dylan's showing are complete and wrapped. So
Yeah.
Let's start there. Are you under any pressure with from when we record only about 4 to 6 weeks away?
So I would say the pressure is honestly making me more motivated to finish it because I know I have that deadline. I think the big difference from Dylan's thing, obviously all due respect to him, is that animation is a lot more time consuming for less content. So I've pulled a lot of all-nighters trying to get different scenes done, or even just lip syncing takes a few hours. I love doing it, but because of that, that's why I'm still working on it so close to the end. I will obviously promise I'm not sacrificing quality. That's why I'm sacrificing my sleep schedule. But it's worth it. It's worth it. And I also like being able to present an animated feature, which is so different than other stuff we've shown at the film series before. So.
Nick,
Yeah,
we've never shown any animated anything. I mean,
Will this be the first animated thing ever?
I can't think of anything else that there would have been animation in.
That's fantastic.
Unless it's CGI, which doesn't count. So yeah.
Doubly historical.
So let me ask you. Well, first of all, Alex, I don't want to get in your way. Please feel free to jump in.
So my biggest question for both of you, because both of your processes for making these movies is going to look so different,
Right.
is just like, can we have a peek behind that curtain? What does that actually look like? What are you actually doing to create these films?
Lots of writing.
Yeah. So what I tend to do is, depending on the different things I work on, because I work on this as well as a webcomic of the same name, I tend to plot my stuff out through a scene list instead of just writing, and I do the writing process and the storyboard process. That way I can do comedic beats and stuff with visuals that go with it. It's very different than writing for something like live action, but it's just as time consuming. It's just as difficult.
That's actually, that's a really interesting question that you ask, considering that you're talking to like two ends of the entire film spectrum. Because when I think about it, as Nick's talking about it, it's like I do completely different things than what he would do, because your stuff is more about like the animation
It's
and
about
like the
visuals.
drawing, the
Not saying
storyboarding.
yours don't have great visuals.
Well, yeah, but it's like totally different visuals.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you got like, I'm looking for like actors, location stuff. He doesn't have to worry about that, but I don't have to do all like the artistic like drawing.
See, I don't have to worry about location or actor releases,
Right.
but he does.
Right.
But the difference with him is if he writes a script and stuff, it's like, okay, follow what this says. Where as opposed to me, these are non-existent people. They're cartoons, so they follow what I draw.
Yeah,
Like
pretty much. You can like make explosions. I
Yes.
can't really do that. At
Yeah.
the moment. Yeah.
Nick, I wanted to ask you though. You made this point earlier that this is based on or sort of your webcomic coming to life. Tell us more about the webcomic. Where can we
Yeah.
go see it?
So-
Tell us a little bit about how you got started with that.
So it's kind of like a three-tiered question. So Nick and Trevor, I started working back on that in 4th grade.
Fourth grade.
Back then, I didn't have like all the names or all the characters. Obviously, I was like 10, so I was just like, this would be cool. It would be cool if I drew myself in a comic. That's what it started as. And I did draw myself in a comic then, and I made like a big comic book, stapled it together, and I was so proud of it that I thought I can't get higher than this. But obviously, I didn't know that you could do more with that, and we live in a really great world for self-publishing and putting your stuff out there. So I worked on that, and after that, they kind of were just like my little guys I would draw all the time. I had like the story in mind for how the full plot would go, but I never really made anything with it. And then in 2019, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make an animated pilot. And this is not the same as that. I actually finished that pilot like 5 years ago. That's been done for a while.
How long
and
is that?
that's like 13 minutes.
Okay,
But
I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Where's that
I
one
can
at?
send that to you.
Okay.
It's just called Nick and Trevor Pilot. It's the same thing. It's not the same story as what I'm showing at the film series. This is before the webcomic, so it's a lot more crude, and it's like early high school me, so it has unnecessary swears. It's not good. But like I need to keep it for, historical reasons. But so I worked on that, and I was very proud of that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to keep working on more episodes of this. And then I realized animation is hard. So I decided I'm going to adapt the story into a webtoon, which is on Webtoon, the hosting platform. It's basically YouTube for comics. And I've had the comic going since 2023. It's on hiatus right now. But by the time this episode comes out, it might be on season 2 because I have season 2 premiering April 24th.
Okay.
So
That's amazing. So, tell us a little bit about the story. You're
Yeah.
kind of tiptoeing around what the story actually is.
So, well, at least what this, the first day is going to adapt is the prologue, chapters 1 and chapter 2. And basically what the story follows is it follows a young high schooler named Nik Cooper. It used to be based on me. It's not based on me anymore. But the name was just stuck because it's been so long. I'm like, well, I can't choose his name now, so I'll change his last name. I'll make his full name Nicholas. How about whatever. It follows Nik Cooper. It's his first day of public school. For the longest time, he was doing online school, so he doesn't have a lot of social interaction with friends. And at public school, he realizes this is terrible. People here suck. People here are mean. It takes place in the late 2000s, so it was a lot more toxic and a lot more bully heavy. And so he realizes I hate this. And then he he makes friends with a shy kid named Trevor Hampton, and Trevor Hampton is always like the subject of people being bullied because it's like the late 2000s, so him having like feminine interests like gardening or just not being very overly confident and a jerk makes people think that he's a wuss, make fun of him and insult him. And so they find solace in the fact that they're both like outcasts. And they decide to, they think we kind of got stuff in common. We should be friends. While they're friends, we meet Trevor's older sister, Reese Hampton, who's a lot more energetic and happy. She's a nerd, but she fits in with a lot more of the status quo more. So she's kind of their mouthpiece for other people in the school. And then they meet a shady kid named Maxwell, who he starts out as a bully, but it seems like there's more depth to him than it comes on.
How would this be rated by the Motion Picture Association of America?
So if it was the pilot, R.
Okay.
But this, I think it'll be PG-13 because it's high school, so there is mild swearing here and there, but they're not like saying F-bombs every 2 minutes or anything like that.
I mean, look at some of the movies that we've shown.
Yeah.
I have a Big Lebowski poster from one of the early days of the film series, and they're quite colorful language. Let's just say that in that film, even in Fight Club, which we just showed. So we're not immune to cursing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like this has got to be open for little kids or anything like that, you know?
So, yeah, this one I'd say is more PG-13 because there's a few swears. I think there's one really bad expletive, but you have to keep in mind these are like 15-year-olds, so like they're gonna swear.
I
want to make it realistic to high school.
I was just kind of curious on like the tone, you know what I mean? Like, so it's almost like a Family Guy episode or a Beavis and Butthead episode.
It's like a Family Guy episode with like a little more heart, so it's like a lot more like an older Simpsons episode. I guess would make more sense, and it's very. Like I said, it's set in 2008, and the reason is I was like 5 in 2008, so I remember it, but I wasn't like this age. But I love 2000s fashion, 2000s culture, and I think for a high school story, the 2000s is the perfect time frame to set it in because there's no smartphones yet. There's very few people had them. Got flip phones.
So
bullies.
did you, when you first started this, even if you want to look back to as far as fourth grade or even more recently, was this an outlet for you to explain? Like, I mean, I think we all understand, generally speaking, that filmmakers, creators, like animators, they're doing this as artistic expression. Did this fill any other void for you other than just an artistic outlet? Was this a way that you knew how to communicate because of some things that you'd gone through in your life?
So I would say these characters have it a lot worse than I ever had in my life. Okay, when it started when I was in fourth grade, he was a literal self-insert of me. And there were other characters that aren't in it anymore that were actual friends of mine. And I didn't take them out because I hate them. I took them out of respect for them being real people and me being an adult. I don't want to put them under the bus or anything like that. I think it was just a way of me thinking, like, what if my life was a lot more interesting, if that makes sense? Because the original story was a lot more
You're an animator.
The original concept was a lot more fantastical, and there will be fantasy elements of this. It'll have supernatural stuff you'll see. It's like it's a mystery, but it's a comedy mystery. It has a lot of funny moments.
You made a really good point earlier in our pre-show meeting, and you basically said it's about the length of 30-minute sitcom television show. So it's just if you're trying to look, if you all are out there trying to envision what this short film is going to be, it's going to be around the length of, in your particular case, Dylan's got sort of some different lengths as well. So I really like that idea. And I'll come back to Dylan with this as well. Okay, so we're screening this at the film series.
Yes.
We're very excited, honored, in fact, to have you here. What's next after this?
So,
are you going to make a feature film? Are you going to maybe make a couple, like a 4-episode television show type of situation?
So right now, my main focus is obviously getting this done. I have the secondary focus of season 2 of the comic I'm working on. The way I release comics is once it starts coming out, it's a weekly thing until the midway point of the season. Take a hiatus to work on the second half, release that weekly. So right now it's this, then season 2 at the same time. This actually is at the film series first. It releases on YouTube a week later. So anyone that comes to the film series, you get to see it a week early.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And then
exclusive premiere.
After that, I guess just season 3 will be my main focus, which if I'm only working on the comic stuff, I'll have a lot more time to get that done. I've had this on the back burner. I do have a lot of script and concept art. I do want to make a feature film with these characters. It has its completely own original story. The entire soundtrack is done. It's a full-length musical. I don't want to say too much about that because it's like, I wouldn't say it's really early in development, but I don't want to get anyone's hopes up yet because it's still probably like 2 or 3 years out.
Well, and I'll tell you something else, and I don't want to kill Dylan's thunder because we'll come right to this, but I think the festival circuit, there are festivals all around from Harrisburg, all over Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philly. Maybe once you feel like it's where like absolutely finished and polished, certainly you got a shot. I mean, and here's another thing, especially if you can find one that has animated categories.
Yeah.
You got to imagine that not a ton of people are doing this.
Yeah. I
don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
But like, there's like a weird stigma that animation is only for kids, and obviously kids love animation because it's pretty colors and moving things. There's like 2 facets of animation that everyone always divides them in. There's the kiddie stuff, and there's like adult stuff like Family Guy, Simpsons, South Park, and stuff. And I like those too. Well, I don't really like Family Guy, but I like those too. But there's like people don't do a middle ground where it can have like PG-13 or like adult humor and still be like a wholesome story.
Right.
That's what a lot of my friends and I talk about. It's like a good kids movie is not just for kids.
No,
it's also for families.
Yeah.
And
that's
people
why
can
I
enjoy
tend
it.
to call them family movies, because they like just because it's a cartoon, it doesn't mean anything. And I think cartoons are really good for providing different types of mediums. That makes no sense. It's good for providing different types of emotions that you can't necessarily always do in live action.
Right.
So we've talked a lot about like your inspiration, your webtoon, the story behind, your film. Dylan, I'm very curious. Where did your inspirations come from for both of your films?
That's a good question. So Vintage definitely, kind of like Nick was saying, tied back a lot into like pieces of like my belief system and like things that I really love. So like it has like that old soul kind of vibe in there. And like I always liked old movies and old things. So that's kind of where that inspiration came from. It's drew from a lot of personal stuff. But Plaster Heart, honestly, the way that one was inspired, this is a weird piece, is that that entire script came to me in one night.
Oh, wow.
So I wrote the entire thing. I was actually in bed and like I couldn't stop thinking about, because a little bit context. I guess I should have started here. I was about to move out of my apartment like in a month and a half, maybe 2 months, something like that, and was getting through like the process of like getting that stuff done. Mm-hmm. I told my friend, I was like, man, we should like film something here, because not only am I going to be gone from this location, but it was like this beautiful old, it's like a renovated factory into like the apartments and stuff. So it's got like the old exposed brick and wood and all the beautiful stuff. I'm like, it would be really cool to film something here. We haven't done something for a year or so since Vintage. And I was like, we should do something before I would leave out of here. And we did. But I couldn't think of like a way to make it. It was just going to be something simple, but I still couldn't think of a way to make it like worthwhile. You know what I mean? I was trying to think of like a script or something. And then again, back to where I was, all of that came to me in like one night. And we ended up filming it a couple weeks later.
Well, share with us a little bit more about the background. Again, I understand that it's shorter than Vintage, but tell us about it. Our listeners don't really know much about it.
So Plaster Heart, Vintage has been shown. People know a little bit more about that. Plaster Heart has been out since October of last year. Again, similar to most of my films, like Nolan stuff, I can't really tell the entire synopsis, or else I'll spoil the whole thing. As with Vintage. But Plaster Heart, the synopsis of it is that a man has murdered his best friend, and after he has done that, he's dealing with like the guilt of it and everything, and he ends up finding a mysterious broken hole in his basement, in the apartment complex's basement, and it leads him to discover dark truths.
That sounds amazing.
So
it's a lot more morbid than anything I made.
So one of the things I did want to ask you, in your film, so just contrasting the two films you're going to show, one more that 40 minutes, this one more that 14, 15, 16 minutes. Is it just a matter of the script dictating how long it is? Did you set out to do Plaster Heart to be shorter? Because I want to just add one thing. Dylan did mention that when you're going on the festival circuit, part of the issue that you had with Vintage is just the timing. That certain festivals want things to be a certain length, and for some of them, it was either too short or too long.
Sure.
And so did that play into how Plaster Heart kind of got made?
A little bit. In a short answer, yes, it did. I wouldn't say that when I was making the script, it was more so about like, man, this has to be short for a festival. It was more like, we don't have time to film something as long as Vintage. It just wouldn't really work out, and then I'd be left with like 3/4 of a movie and nothing left. That was the main reason why it was a little bit shorter. But in a way, yes, I kind of was like, I need to start maybe making my films a little bit shorter if I can. Again, I don't like to always shorten a script just based on the fact of like, well, I just need to enter in a film festival,
right?
Because then you might be sacrificing story.
100%.
So the thought process on Plaster Heart, just tried to keep it a little bit shorter, more complete and contextualized.
How long did it take you to shoot Plaster Heart?
It took us 2 days.
That's incredible.
We were booking it, but
that's
it took us 2
incredible.
days. Yeah.
And how many like different like locations? Obviously, the basement, very key.
Yeah. So we had the basement. We had of the apartment complex, of course, and we had my room, which was also pretty empty by that point because most of the stuff had been moved out, which is kind of how I wanted it at that point. So I had the apartment and several spots around the town of Palmyra where I was at the time. Oh, that was the other piece of the question that you had asked. So the length in terms of like Vintage versus Plaster Heart and how it like dictates. Another piece to that I was going to mention is that for Plaster Heart, or I should say for Vintage, we were doing a lot more shooting of like the cinematography stuff. Now, granted, there's a lot of that in Plaster Heart, but there were so many shots in Vintage that I just wanted to get because it would kind of allude to that like noir style cinematography that's just kind of a beautiful thing, I think. And that did, to your point, to your question, that did make the time much longer.
Just even shooting anything in 2 days, I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I got to give you all the credit in the world. So let me just ask you, we have a few minutes left here, and I want to make sure I get back to Alex, but my final question, what does it mean to you to be able to screen this film, Nick, first time ever, really, and first time ever seeing it on the big screen, at the college that you spent so much time and effort and energy at? What does it mean to you to have that opportunity? Like when you were asked to do this, what did you think?
Well, when I was first asked, I was nervous I wouldn't be able to have it done. I can promise I will now. That's close enough. But I think it's very much a full circle moment. I never would have expected me doodling or like storyboarding and stuff in class when I wasn't supposed to would pay off in a good way. I'm happy it did. I'm happy I get to show it with the world. And besides it just being my own thing, I've injected a lot of stuff I like into this. Like there's a lot of video game sound effects, references, music cues. So like, and just other media in general. It's just so having like stuff that has like an amalgamation of different things I like in something that's entirely me and getting to show it with other people and hopefully having them like it or at least think it looks good. Makes me very kind of emotional in a good way.
I'm really happy. I think what's interesting about really both of you former film series correspondents, and that's to me why it was so important to do this, because not only is it super unique and different, and again, taking nothing away from the normal format that we run, right?
Right.
So, we've done Scream, and we've done High Noon, and we've done Fight Club, classic films. I think that's really cool. I think there's still a place for that. That being said, when we got to 30, which the last one was with Noah Lopez doing Fight Club, I started really thinking about, what can the film series continue to evolve into? Because the one thing I don't want to get the film series to be, because of how much I absolutely love it, is stagnant. So I want to try to find some new and unique things. I think we did that with the Haunted House, which I thought added a really cool element to the whole thing. But I want to start thinking of creative and unique ways that the film series can be, and so this was one of the first things that I thought is having you. And of course, when Plaster Heart came out, then you rescore Vintage. I'm like, this just makes perfect sense.
Right.
And so even for me, I haven't seen Vintage since the original, so I'm just looking forward to seeing it again with the
You
rescore.
just close your eyes and listen to the music.
No, I will.
I've waited to see Plaster Heart because I already was offered this back at the Nightly News Hall of Fame. He was talking to us about showing our stuff for a film series.
Yeah.
And I knew Plaster Heart was coming out then. And so when I saw you post about it, I'm like, I'm not going to watch this. I don't want to.
Sure.
Not because I don't want to give you the views.
No, that makes sense.
But because I don't want to spoil myself. I did the same thing with Vintage because I
Right.
was out for a little while before we had the film
The trailer
series.
at least gives you like a little bit of tease.
Yeah, I did watch that. But I do not want to watch it until the film series. So
Dylan, you've done the film series twice. You've screened your own films before in the past. What makes this one a little bit different?
Plaster Heart, that is?
No, I mean, what makes this film series experience for you a little bit different?
Well, not only being able to do it with Nick, which is, I think, really awesome because you have like more and more students kind of showing off their stuff at Central Penn, but also the matter of doing two of my own, because I know last time, one of which was, granted, I did the cinematography and stuff, but that was Dominic's, so this time I'm doing two, which that's different.
All credit to both of you for your creative journey. So we have time for one more question from Alex, and then we'll wrap up here in just a moment.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear from you guys. This question kind of comes from me being an artist myself. Community has been such a essential part of my art journey and finding my own art community. Have you guys been able to find sort of your film art community? Have you been able to connect with it, in person or online? Either one?
So, yes, a lot of the people that are doing voice acting or the music for this. So I've made my own music before, but I do not have time to make a soundtrack for this with on top of the animation and stuff. So one of my really good friends who I met in 2020, her name's Bella. She's doing the music for this, and she offered to do it for free. I'm like, no, I'm going to pay you for it because no. But yeah, so a lot of people that were involved in this since the original pilot have come back for this. And I consider them actual friends now and not just like people that work for my thing because we talk outside of that about normal stuff regardless of what it is. and I've been in several friend groups and group chats and stuff since basically the pandemic when it was really bad, and everyone was making stuff then, and that's when I already was working on the original pilot, and I was like, these are great people, and they're still my friends. I still message them regularly today, and they're involved in a lot of my artistic stuff. So I definitely found community in that, and especially now with like the whole AI rise of garbage, it's nice to be able to have an artistic outlet that regardless, I know people won't like leave me for that stuff.
I would say on a smaller level, I 100% agree with that. Like there's a community that you kind of form while you're like doing the stuff that you do. But in case you were saying about like a community that you're like putting your stuff out to that they can find and like it kind of grows from that and like people will like watch your stuff, I would say that it's still it's a hard, especially nowadays with social media being as big as it is, it's definitely a hard search. I still haven't really found too many people that are into it, unless you like are pushing your stuff with like money or like really big funding behind you, or you're just a well-known name or something. It can be tough. Yeah.
Sure.
I actually want to piggyback on that because I didn't even think about that version of the question with the community, like putting it out in the world. We live at simultaneously the easiest time to get your stuff out there and the hardest time to get your stuff out there because it's so easy. Everybody has stuff getting out there, so it can get swamped easier.
Before we get out of here, you'd mentioned something very, very big, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but something about Plaster Heart and a film festival.
Yeah, so my friend Dominic, who did At War With Myself, which also screened here at Central Penn, he a couple weeks ago sent me an email that had a link to a film festival and said, hey, I don't know if you're going to be able to get in on this in time or if you're even interested, but here's this, check it out. And I looked, and it was the Pottsville Film Festival. And I looked at it, and I think there was, I can't remember for the life of me why, but I thought there was like going to be like a little catch, like I wasn't going to be able to get it in time. So I reached out to them. I sent an email, asked them whatever the question was, and said, like, is this possible for me to get in or something like that? And they responded and said, absolutely, here's a discount code, send it in, we'd love to have it. And I was like, okay, well, that has to be, that's great.
Yeah.
I kind of have to now. They kind of invited me in. Bottom line, I submitted it, and just 2 days ago, I got an email that they selected it by the judges.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
When is the
Wow.
actual film festival?
The film festival happens from the May 29th to the 31st. I will only be able to be there for one day of it, unfortunately.
Well, you do have another obligation on May 29th.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. May 29th and the 31st, I'll be doing other things, but the 30th, I will be there. So.
I mean, they can't expect you to just be up there for a whole week. You know,
I don't know. It should be a good time, though.
Well, congratulations. So that's going
Thank
to be
you.
a whirlwind of a weekend.
It will
man.
be,
So you're
very
going to be
much.
going up to the film festival the day after you screen it here.
Yes.
That's tremendous. I got to tell you, I wish I could sit here with you all day to talk about this, but it's been such an adventure, and I'm so looking forward to this. I'm so looking forward to just having the two of you show to a big crowd who's going to appreciate it, and hopefully this is just the beginning for all three of these films, because I'll tell you, we have some amazing talent sitting in this room right here, and I thank you guys for being here today so much. And Nick, really looking forward to seeing Nick and Trevor up on the big screen for the first time, as I'm sure you are too. But the best part about that is, well, when we screen it, you're probably done with it, hopefully, or at least
I will.
for the
No,
vast majority.
I will be. If there's anything I ever fix, it might be like lighting or coloring here and there. The actual thing will be 100% done.
Until the sequel comes out.
No, don't even make me think of that right now because I get too ambitious.
And Dylan,
I know
of
that's
course,
about.
we can certainly have this conversation, but anything else on the horizon for you right now in terms of films?
At the moment, in terms of films themselves, not quite. I do, of course, have Fellowship Studios, like the freelancing stuff, the weddings, the businesses. That's picking up pace very heavily. This year looks very busy. But for films, I have some scripts in the works. I don't know if time will allow for that, but that's always the case. So I'm hoping that something will come up.
Fantastic. And of course, Alex, I never really knew until today that you were an artist. You're going to have to show me some of this stuff, because I'll tell you, you're seeing what this can lead to down the road.
Certainly.
All right. Well, hey, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. I want to thank Nightly News Hall of Famer Dylan Bowman for being here. I want to thank former CPC Film Series correspondent and prestigious Nightly News alum Nik Hogan, and of course our current CPC Film Series correspondent Alex Foley for joining us here on the program. Make sure to save the date for Friday, May 29th, 6 o'clock in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater for the Spring CPC Film Series triple feature with 2 films from Dylan and 1 from Nick. So we will see you then. That's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. We'll see you again next time.
This is Nik Hogan, Secretary of the Nightly News and CPC Film Series correspondent. You're listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Well, welcome everybody to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I am so honored to be joined by one of our esteemed faculty members on campus, Dr. Amanda Stuckey. Dr. Stuckey, it's such a pleasure to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's one of my favorite places to be.
Really?
Yes.
Well, we should have you more often then if it's your favorite place to be.
Absolutely.
We got to have you on. So I did want to talk today about an event that happened last term, and that is the gallery walk that Dr. Stuckey was in charge, and basically half the campus showed up for.
Yeah.
We're also being joined by Nightly News reporter Arsenio Humphrey. Arsenio, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Knights Nation?
And Arsenio has been doing some amazing work with our athletics this term. Of course, one of the esteemed members of the Nightly News. So we appreciate Arsenio's time. Talk a little bit more about his award-winning project. So, well, we have to start at the beginning, Dr. Stuckey. One thing that I have to give you immense credit for, and frankly, some of our colleagues might take note on some of the things that you do, is the creative assignments that you do. It all started with the really fantastic sort of infographic scavenger hunt that you do around campus. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that assignment? I know it's not exactly what we're talking about here today, but I'd love to hear a bit more about where this idea came from.
Sure. So one of my favorite parts about teaching is when student work leaves the classroom and enters into our campus conversations, for others to see what we're doing, but also for students to have the experience of having an audience beyond just me, beyond their peers, for their work. And so the infographic scavenger hunt, that's in IDS 102, which is, I was just telling Arsenio, that's sort of like the pre-English 105 class, where we learn the process of academic research, create an infographic on a topic of students' choice, and then future IDS 102 students get to sort of see what their predecessors have created for that project in the scavenger hunt around campus. And it also shows the amazing work our students are doing from term to term to people who aren't enrolled in the class.
I just absolutely love this. And I always see around campus, the class period, all of the students are all over place, and they're like touring campus, and it's just so unique. And I really, really appreciate something like that. But this is a little different. So we're going to sort of flash forward to this gallery walk. So first of all, this is the first time that you've done something quite like this, right?
Yes, I had it planned for last year, and another faculty member took over for me and worked with the library services to make it happen. But this was my first time actually seeing it come to fruition.
And so you sort of envisioned this whole project. Unfortunately, you were not able to see it through last year, which made it all the more special this year,
I know.
I'm sure.
I was so excited, and I actually was able to learn a lot from feedback that people provided last year. So I think in a sense, I kind of got the best of both worlds, by being able to see this version as the first one after the practice one last year.
So I want to talk a little bit more about what the gallery walk is.
Sure.
When you envisioned this project, what was your thought process behind how you presented this gallery walk?
Sure. So I got the idea from a colleague who works at Gettysburg College in the education department, and she invited me to come see her students' gallery walk about, the topic was on banned books. And I loved the sort of kind of meeting in the middle of not a formal poster presentation like you might see at the research exhibition, but also not an informal in-class presentation, kind of like what we do in IDS 102 as well. Something more of a conversation, and something that allows students to practice a range of skills, public speaking, thinking on their feet. I think that was a big one that we sort of talked about and tried to prepare for as best we could. But also being able to speak knowledgeably on a topic that you really care about, and that your audience, and getting that audience buy-in for them to care too. So that's kind of how the idea came to fruition. English 105 used to coincide with the research exhibition, which I loved because we could prepare for that. When the scheduling got shifted around, I knew there had to be a way to get their work outside of the class so that, again, it wasn't just me, an audience member for their paper.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the toughest parts about doing the type of thing that we do, is that there most certainly is value to doing an in-class presentation.
Absolutely.
This is much different for the sole fact that, Arsenio and the group, they got an audience. And I mean, almost to the point where it's like, is the library the right place to do it? Because
Right.
you had so many people in that library. It
Yes.
was, I mean, I'm not claustrophobic at all, and there was a good flow to it.
Yes.
You know, I didn't feel like I was a sardine or anything, but it was just, there was a lot of people in the library, and that's just a testament to you and the interest that not only you created around campus, but also the students. Arsenio, I want to bring you in here for a minute, and then we'll have a little bit more time to talk to you about this later. So when you experienced this in class, tell me a little bit more about your project. Don't give everything away, because I do want to come back to this. But when you first heard about this gallery walk, how did you first walk through what topic that you were looking to do?
Well, actually, we were given a list of things that we could choose from, and I actually looked at the list, and Professor Stuckey could tell you, I chose maybe 2 or 3 different topics before I actually chose artificial intelligence. And I think the reason why I had chose that is because I figured nobody would want to talk about it, especially I know that, and then another one was sexual assault, which are kind of sensitive topics. But I do know that AI specifically is a definitely sensitive topic, as far as not even just here, but even colleges everywhere. And it's about how our students and also our teachers going to adapt to the changing technologies that's going on. So I think it was something to raise some type of awareness, especially getting it from a student's point of view.
Well, that's really interesting that you said that, Arsenio, because to be honest with you, one of the biggest challenges, I don't want to speak for Dr. Stuckey here, so I'm going to ask her the same question. But part of my problem as an instructor is there's 2 ways to look at this. Number one, absolutely students still need to know how to write. It's not like you should just put information into AI, it spits it out, you turn that in. That totally, frankly, spits in the face of education in a general sense, but higher education especially. But beyond that, the flip side of the coin is, I think as faculty members, we understand that this is a skill that people are going to need. And so the balance has to be is how do we teach skills they need, but also new skills that they're also going to need that unfortunately conflict immensely like oil and water. And so this is the balance that myself, the rest of the faculty members here at Central Penn, including Dr. Stuckey, how do we do this? How do we teach? How do we teach students why it's important not to constantly use AI for everything, but how do we also foster their learning of artificial intelligence as well? Can you answer any of those questions?
Well, I think, I don't mean to cut you off, Professor Stuckey, but I think what Professor Stuckey did was kind of the solution as far as having a gallery walk where it's we're able to present our ideas or our research topics and being able to have people come up to us, talk to us, give them feedback, and then also test our knowledge on what actually we studied. So then that goes beyond as far as using it. It's as far as, are you able to retain the information and really present it, and also use your words properly to, as far as get your point across.
So, Dr. Stuckey, back to that original question, how does this work? How do we still teach the students the skills that they need while also not telling them not to use it at all? Because we understand that students are going to need to use artificial intelligence in some capacity. So how do we walk that line?
Yeah, I mean, you used the word balance, and I try to take that approach, even though it is constantly evolving. And we did use AI to kind of, because we're on an accelerated term, as you know, and so it sort of makes sense to maybe use the features of AI tools to help us through some of the slower parts of the research process, not to do the work for us, but to help us decide, is this source going to be useful? Is it not going to be useful? What is the main idea of this source? Can I use that in my research? So in those sort of broader approaches, we did practice using AI tools, but what I think, and I think Arsenio spoke to this, what really sort of pushes it beyond what AI can do is making sure our work is embedded in the community that we are here a part of and that it serves that community. ChatGPT can produce a lot of knowledge about Central Penn College, as I've learned, but in terms of talking with students, talking with faculty, designing the surveys. We had Professor Hummel come to our class twice, and I have to give an amazing shout out to him because his sort of guidance in how to prepare and conduct surveys on campus really changed the direction of what students were able to do. That type of work is something, like Arsenio said, ChatGPT cannot reproduce, and that's the sort of heart of what scholarship is like, how can we use this to serve a community that we are a part of and benefit it?
In a general sense, and I hate for you to have to answer this question on behalf of the entire faculty, but how has your teaching evolved over the last, basically since D-Day of 2022 and ChatGPT was just dropped like a bomb in not just higher education, but all education?
Right.
How has your teaching evolved over the last few years to address artificial intelligence? And in fairness, I'm just going to preface by saying I know Amanda and I both have participated in a variety of trainings, and I'm sure we both constantly read about it and understand best practices. I think the biggest problem is that it just keeps getting better. And
Right.
by the time you kind of catch up to the point where you feel a little bit more comfortable with how you're going to integrate it, it's just totally changed. So
Absolutely.
how has your teaching evolved over time, or how does it continue to evolve?
I would say continue to evolve. I mean, my thinking used to be, okay, how can I design assignments it is impossible to use ChatGPT for? But like you said, it kept getting better, and that was no longer a reasonable goal to do. So then, thinking, well, how can I incorporate these tools and have students think critically about how they're using it? That's the kind of juncture I'm at right now, and I have not figured out, because I have seen students actually use the AI to comment on the AI. And so it's sort of a little bit of a frustration moment. But, I recognize, my kids are in the Pennsylvania public school system. My son has like a school AI tool that gives him feedback on his papers when he submits them. So I recognize that especially the upcoming generations will have been trained on how to use these tools and probably know more than I do about them. I don't have an answer.
Well, I certainly wasn't asking you
Yeah,
to
no, I know.
solve all of the world's
I
problems.
wish. Gosh, couldn't. Wow. I feel like in this room it could happen.
Yeah,
we got
it's a
Arsenio.
possibility.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the biggest things, Dr. Stuckey, is before I know that you have to head out, and I'm going to spend the
Sure.
rest of the time with
Yes.
Arsenio, but I do want to thank you for doing this gallery walk.
Oh.
I love the fact that it is so collegial, the fact that you got so much support from both faculty, staff, and students. And frankly, the work that your students done that you helped to foster was just unbelievably fantastic. And again, I understand that you are always one to give credit to the students, as well you should. And I have no issue with that whatsoever. But you also have to, I hope, should take just a little credit yourself for putting on such a fantastic event and giving these students the platform to do that. Because without you, maybe it's just another class presentation. Maybe I don't ever get to hear Arsenio's amazing thesis, which we're going to talk about here in a moment. So in that regard, and not to mention the fact that you fostered them throughout the whole opportunity. So thank you so much for doing that and
Well,
being you.
I do have to throw it back to the students and to the entire community who showed up and supported and promoted this event. This, to me, was sort of like what I always have aspired to accomplish, and I think it was so amazing that it happened with this group of students, because we had a great class. That was we had our ups and downs, but I think that class was just an incredible group of minds that was really ready for this challenge.
Yeah, looking back on it, I just want to thank you for that, because even like you said, it was your first time. It was a huge positive outcome, and I think further down the line, it's only going to get better, and it actually shines a light on the academics in the school. So it's like, we always see sports, because I'm involved in sports a lot, but just seeing the academics is really something that's really to keep going.
You guys are like the mental athletes.
Because I remember telling you about the tickets and everything. I'm like, this should be a privilege for people to come there.
Oh, I know, yes.
We're actually taking the time to really use our brains, really trying to
charge people now.
Yeah.
No, so totally kidding.
All right, I want to come back to Arsenio. So we didn't really have a chance to talk a lot about your actual project. Of course, we understand that it was artificial intelligence discussion. So tell me a little bit more about what your project idea was, how you came up with that topic.
All right, so we got a whole bunch of different topics to choose from. So I figured I'd pick the one that's kind of a little bit more sensitive, and also something that will actually spark somebody's thought on what this needs to change, or we need to make a change to like affect the school. So it's like our students, or I keep saying our students, but myself as a student, we're not really like losing out on the education that we're supposed to be getting provided.
So tell me about what was your thesis? Like, what was again, I know because I was there, but the listeners may not. What was your whole perspective, and what were your conclusions of this research that you did?
Okay, so basically it was as far as getting the word out about ChatGPT, and also getting students to communicate with their teachers about how they use it, and also how not to be so dependent on it to where it's that you're really curving your learning and you're not going to help yourself in the future, because it's like a putting a Band-Aid on a stab wound. Like, it might stop the bleeding for a little bit, but in the long run, it's going to get infected, and it's just going to be like a trickling effect, and you're not really going to benefit. So I look at it as like a huge like epidemic, as far as if a whole bunch of students aren't really prepared to go into the workforce, and when they go into the workforce, it's going to diminish a Central Penn College degree.
Certainly fair. I would just push back in this way, not that I disagree, but I think it's actually far worse than that.
Yeah.
I think what happens is essentially, and I make this point, so I have developed something, this is the way I've kind of responded, something that I call AI class, which I probably could come up with a much more creative title for it, probably using AI to do so. But what it was is I piloted this project in my media and politics class, and essentially what I did is I made a module where I have a presentation that I put together, a couple of really interesting articles, and then I have students do an AI certification.
Okay.
So the whole goal here is to walk through the whole point, like exactly what you're talking about. Like, listen, it's not to say that AI can't be used, but use it ethically. And here's what ethically means. The point that I try to make, sort of my thesis toward the AI class, is, listen, if you use AI, you're not going to know the information you need to know for when you get out in the workforce. But beyond that, the more you use AI, the more AI is just going to replace you. So you're essentially training your replacement. And unfortunately, for a lot of these professional jobs that we're talking about, all of the majors here at the college, many of them, could be potentially, and in some cases are being phased out by artificial intelligence.
Professor Stuckey used the term a lot, a loss of agency. So, like you were saying, so much use of it, and that was like in my research too. There was certain students that felt like their ideas weren't becoming their own no more because they were so much dependent on it, and it's like you're losing your creativity, and that's like really what all we have, especially in life.
Numerous studies have come out and said that even if short-term use significantly impacts the cognitive ability of a human being, but I've also now read, Arsenio, just this week, that the backlog of peer review. So, for instance, if you would want to be published in a journal,
okay,
you would do a study, sort of like what you guys did in class, it sounds like,
yeah,
and submit that to a journal. Now, at that point, when we talk about peer-reviewed, what that means is there are multiple reviewers for that journal.
Yes.
They will agree or disagree whether this should be published. That process takes a while. I read an article this week that said that by the time articles are getting published, they're already obsolete. The technology is moving so quickly, and it takes such a long amount of time to do the study, get it published, that by the time it comes out,
it's all different.
It's totally different. So
that's kind of scary when you think about it.
Indeed, the speed of science is too slow right now for our
catching
technology.
Up to the speed of light.
So anyway, that's really interesting. Now, of course, I think it's important that we talk a little bit about the event itself. So we've gotten to talk a little bit about AI. Tell me a little bit about your experience at the gallery walk.
Actually, it was interesting because I had done science fairs before, so I came up like with a thesis and a proposal and conclusions and things like that. But I think honestly, one thing about me, I like to I think I need to work on like public speaking. So that was actually a chance for me to even get that skill sharpened. So with that, even seeing different professors, it was a nice student turnout also.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that was actually surprising. So even Dr. Fredrizi came. She was actually my first visitor at my table. So that was interesting too, being able to get the president's ear and get her like on the campaign.
Hey, she thinks very highly of you. I bet she's said that to me before. So in the end, how has your opinion, your ideas changed about ChatGPT or other AI models based on the research that you've done in this class? Where did you start? Where did you finish?
I honestly feel as if just with anything, over dependency of it, you're gonna hurt yourself regardless. So it's like you can die from drinking too much water.
Yeah.
So I think you gotta learn to manage it and understand that you were given the ability to come up with your own thoughts, and being able to have those thoughts and being creative and not giving them to a tool is like one of the most precious things I could think of, like in life. Just be even to have your mind. You know what I mean? And you don't really want to lose your mind.
Well, certainly not. So the one thing that I also want to ask you before we call it a day here is, I know this wasn't the day of, again, hugely successful event, student turnout, faculty, staff turnout. It was great snacks. I remember some excellent cookies that we had. But the big thing, and really, Arsenio, the reason why you're here, you won best in show, I suppose you would say, right? So it was a fan vote. How did that make you feel? I mean, you put so much time and effort and energy into it. Now you get something that you can put on your resume that you won the gallery walk, and that's something that you can be proud of. Like, tell me about your reaction when you heard from Dr. Stuckey that you were the winner.
It was actually like surprising, but I knew that the goal of this assignment was to raise awareness, and it was kind of hard for me at first because I was trying to think, like, since the community is so small, what could I do that could affect the change that I know that could be implemented quickly? So like I said, we had a whole list of different topics, and like I said, I chose AI, and then what I used for my article, I used a picture of Sir Will. Basically, I got the inspiration from Sir Lancelot. So anybody familiar with King Arthur and the King Arthur story knows that there's a sword and a stone. So I figured, since we have like a Camelot type of theme with a knight, why not implement that? So the stone on my card that I had was a motherboard that basically signify AI as far as like the computer systems and everything. And he was basically pulling a sword out of it, as far as, like, I called it the pineal blade. So anybody familiar with our brains, we have a pineal gland that basically is like, it keeps our creativity. It's such a small gland, but it's powerful. So, but the goal is to basically keep your agency and be in control. So with that, as far as him taking the blade out and letting him know, like, yes, you're just a tool, and I'm going to use you to benefit me, and I'm not going to let you take over.
Well, Arsenio, I got to tell you, I'm so proud of you, not only just for doing so well at the event, obviously so much so that you won, but really standing up and showing the campus community all of the things that you're learning in Dr. Stuckey's class, and you were an amazing representation of not just your class, but the institution as a whole. And I've said this to you before about the way that you represent our group, the Nightly News, and the pride that you take in being a part of that group. It was just incredible to see, not only really, really interesting topic, clearly knowledgeable. When I spoke with you, I was asking you sort of some off-the-wall questions, and it didn't even faze you. You also admit that you're also, continuing to work on your public speaking skills, so there's another benefit of this whole thing. And hey, you got a little gold that you can hang on the wall, so I got to give you all the credit in the world. But it also just goes to show that these types of projects that you do in your classes, they really can have a long-term impact, and frankly, you'll probably think about this project years from now,
definitely,
when you think back to your college experience. So any final thoughts before we call it a day?
I just want to say Nightly News is the #1 collegiate newscast in Central Pennsylvania. Make sure you check us out. We also have an event coming up soon for bingo. I believe that's going to be May 30th. So please check that out. We're going to be at Community Night. Probably have tickets there also. So just make sure you guys come out and support.
Much appreciated. And again, you can go for more information on our fundraising bingo event on our Facebook page, and there'll also be some information Student Central and Central Station. Well, Arsenio, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations again on the win, and congratulations on just really jumping in headfirst to this project. And Dr. Stuckey, so proud of you.
It was a huge risk, as far as I feel like, since nobody wanted to talk about it. Like,
well, you did an excellent job.
Yeah.
And again, hopefully in the future, the next time Dr. Stuckey does something like this, you can go to her class and give the students some tips.
yeah, definitely. I would enjoy that.
All right. Well, hey, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. I want to thank Dr. Amanda Stuckey, who is one of our English professors here, who put together the gallery walk, and, of course, the victor, Nightly News reporter Arsenio Humphrey. Again, congratulations, Arsenio.
Thank you again.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. We'll see you again next time.